China's economic data. Today we have invited Mr. Fu Linghui, spokesperson of the National Bureau of Statistics and Director General of the Department of Comprehensive Statistics of the NBS, to brief you on China's economic performance in the first 2 months of 2026 and answer your questions. Now I will give the floor to Mr. Fu for his introduction. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As usual, I will start by briefing you on the main economic indicators in the first 2 months of this year and then answer your questions. In the first 2 months, the national economy has made a very strong beginning. In January and February, under the strong leadership of the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, all regions and departments thoroughly implemented the decisions and arrangements made by the CPC Central Committee and the State Council, adhere to the general principle of pursuing progress while ensuring stability, fully applied the new development philosophy, and strengthened the counter-cyclical regulations. We have also reactivated the storage of the productive forces, and we have pursued progress while ensuring stability of the national economy. We have stabilized the prices of the goods, and the whole momentum of economic performance is positive. First, industrial production grew rapidly with accelerated growth in equipment manufacturing and high-tech manufacturing. The total value added of the industrial enterprises above designated size grew by 6.3% year-on-year. Value added by mining went up by 6.1%, manufacturing up by 6.6%. Production and supply of electricity, thermal power, gas and water up by 4.7%, equipment manufacturing by 9.3%, high-tech manufacturing also went up, which is 3.0 percentage points and 6.8 percentage points higher than the average added value. Value added of the enterprises funded by foreign investors of Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan by 10.4%. Production of lithium battery robots went up by 42.6% and 34.1%. In February, value added of industrial enterprises above designated size went up by 2.8%. PMI stood at 49%, up by 0.6 percentage points compared to January. Second, service sector developed very fast. In the first 2 months, the service production index went up by 5.2% year-on-year, which is 0.2 percentage points higher than that of 2025. The service production index of information transmission, software and IT, leasing, business services, wholesale and retail, finance went up respectively by 10.1, 8.2, 7, 6.3 and 5.4%. In February, the business activity index for services reached 49.7%, up by 0.2 percentage points. Expectation index was 57.8%. Business activity index for industries like sports stood within a high range for expectation. For the first 2 months, the total retail sales of consumer goods reached 8.3 trillion yuan, which was 1.9 percentage points compared to the previous month. The retail sales of consumer goods in urban areas went up by 2.7%, and that in rural areas up by 3.2%. Grouped by consumption patterns, retail sales of goods up by 2.5%. Income of catering went up by 4.8%. Sales of basic living goods and certain upgraded goods registered a fast growth. Retail sales of textile, grain, telecommunications, softwares, and recreational articles went up by 17.3% and 18%. In February, we have registered a month-on-month growth of 0.81%. For telecommunication, leasing, tourism have registered a faster growth. Online retail sales reached more than 3 trillion RMB, up by 9.2%. Online retail sales of physical goods went up by 10.3%, accounting for 24% of the total retail sales of consumer goods. Fourth, growth of investment in fixed assets dropped a little bit. Investment in manufacturing and high-tech industries grew quickly. Investment fixed assets went up by 1.1%. Investment infrastructure grew by 1.4%. In real estate development, dropped by 11.1%. Floor space of newly built commercial buildings went down by 13.5%. Total sales of newly built commercial buildings went down by 20.2%. Investment in secondary industry went up by 5.4%. Private investments went up by 1%. Investments in high-tech industries went up by 5.1%, especially in information services, went up by 16.5%. Month-on-month, in February, investment in fixed assets, excluding a rural household, increased by 0.39 percentage points. Total value of imports and exports of goods went up by 18.3% year-on-year. Exportation went up by 19.2%. Importation went up by 17.1%. Importation from the Belt and Road countries went up by 20%. Employment was generally stable, and the surveyed urban unemployment rate remained steady. In the first 2 months, the country's surveyed urban unemployment rate averaged 5.3%. And that rate for the population with local household registration was 5.4%, and for those with non-local registration, it was 5.0%. On average, employees of enterprises worked 48.1 hours per week. In the first 2 months, the CPI increased 0.8% year-on-year. It rose up by 1.2 and 1.3 respectively in January and February. Prices for food, tobacco, and alcohol went up by 0.6%, for clothing up by 1.9%, housing down by 0.1%, articles and services for daily use went up by 2.7%, transportation and communication down by 2.1%, education, culture and recreation down by 1%, medical services went up by 1.8%, other articles and services went up by 14.3%. And among the prices for food, tobacco, and alcohol, the pork went down, fresh fruit up by 14.5%, vegetables up by 8.8%. The core CPI rose 1.3% year-on-year. In January, the CPI rose up by 0.2% month-on-month. In the first 2 months, the national producer prices fell by 1.2% year-on-year. In January, producer prices fell by 1.4% year-on-year and went up 0.4% month-on-month. In February, went up 0.4 percentage points month-on-month. The purchasing prices for industrial producers went up by 1.1%. Generally speaking, in the first 2 months, the economic performance is generally good, but we also have to take into consideration the various macro picture in the international arena. Some of the enterprises, they are still encountering difficulties. Moving towards the next stage of development, we have to apply the decisions of the important meetings of the CPC and also to implement the decisions of the 2 sessions that have just concluded. We have to put the focus on the high-quality development and to seek progress whilst ensuring stability, continue to apply a steady macroeconomic policy, study the markets, the expectation, and the performance of the enterprises so that we can have the rational development of both the quantity and the quality. Thank you very much. Now the floor is open for your questions. Please first identify yourself before raising the question. Thank you. With the first finance, this year marks the first year of the application of the 15th five-year plan. What's your take on the economic performance for the first 2 months of this year? Thank you for your question. This year is the first year for the application of the 15th five-year plan. So everybody is looking closely at the economic performance for the beginning of this year. Despite the turbulences in the international arena, especially the overspilling effects of the geopolitical risks in the international world, we are still applying a very positive macroeconomic policy so that we can make full use of what we have in storage for the first 2 months. The supply and demand have registered very strong growth. We have expanded the production. We have stabilized the prices. We have also cultivated more new quality productive forces. We have a very strong start and a very good beginning for this year. So how do we interpret this performance? More specifically, I could share the following features with you. First of all, we have registered very fast development in production for industrial production. For January and February, added value of enterprises above designated size went up by 6.3% year-on-year. It's mainly due to the improvement of the demand in the domestic market. And manufacturing grew very rapidly, which has become an important contributing factor to the total value added created by industry. Equipment went up by added value for manufacturing went up by more than 9%, which has contributed to more than 47.4% of the total growth in the value added in this area. For service sector, with the factor of the Spring Festival combined and also the stimulating policies to boost up the consumption, we have registered value added in growth for service, which went up by 5.2% year-on-year. And in comparison with the performance in the last December, it's 0.2 percentage points higher. AI development has also boosted rapidly the demand for information services. For the first 2 months, the index of service in the telecommunication services have registered a double-digit growth, and in recent years, this growth has been very steady. During the Spring Festival holiday, for transportation, for catering, for the first 2 months, the production index has registered a higher rate of growth in comparison with that of the last year. Second feature is that we have enlarged the local demand in the domestic market. In terms of the consumption, especially because we have enjoyed a very long holiday for the celebration of the Spring Festival, we have also contributed to the growth of consumption, for example, for recreation activities and culture, etc. Services sector has registered a very good growth, and the retail sales went up by 2.8%, which was 1.9 percentage points higher than that of last year. And the retails of the services is also an important factor. And just now we talked about the retail sales of the goods, the physical goods, and what about the services? It went up by 5.6%. And you can tell that the increase ratio of the growth of the service retails exceeded that of the physical goods. And currently, we are encouraging the development of major engineering projects for the first 2 months of this year. We have invested more than 1.8% in the fixed assets. Last year, in the same period, we have registered a decline of 3.8%, but this year, in the country, we have registered 1.8% in increase. In infrastructure, we have increased investment for the first 2 months. We have registered increase of 11.4%, which is much faster than the pace of that of the whole year of 2025. Foreign trade has also made a very good record. Currently, we have registered a marginal improvement of the global trade. Emerging industries are developing, and China has also proposed more competitive goods towards the international market. For the first 2 months of this year, the foreign trade has registered a fast growth rate. Import and export of goods registered an increase of 18.3 percentage points, much higher than that of last year. For the major trading partner, for ASEAN, EU, and the BRI countries, our trade with them maintained a growth rate of more than 20%, and the fast growth of import and export of the foreign trade in total for China has reflected that China has built up a very good resilience and also a strong vitality in the foreign trade. And next is the stability in employment and pricing of the goods. For the first 2 months, due to the holiday, we have registered a mild growth of the unemployment rate, but in average, it's 5.3%, which compared to the same period of last year stayed at the same level, which signify that our employment situation has been studied. Considering the major groups, for the rural households leaving the countryside to work in the cities, they have registered the same level of employment. And now let's talk about the prices. we have noticed the recovery of the demand in the market, and also thanks to the holiday of the Spring Festival. In the first 2 months of this year, the CPI has registered a mild growth. For this period of time, the average growth of CPI went up by 0.8 percentage points, which stayed at the same level of that of February. But in comparison with the whole year of 2025 and that of last December, it has went up a little bit. If we consider the core CPI, it went up by 1.3% year-on-year. We have noticed positive signs among the prices. And number 5, the new developing engines are growing. We have made a very good start for this year. We have cultivated new quality productive forces, and we have also made new momentum. Today, we are expanding the use of AI+. Digital technology is helping us to improve the coordination between the upstream and downstream of the value chain, telecommunication, of computing, and the other manufacturing went up by 14.2%. For electronics, this sector has also grown up very fast, driving the growth of also the chemicals, the raw materials. The chemical materials and chemical manufacturing went up by 7.6%, a rather fast growth. In the meantime, we have also noticed that with the development of AI, with stronger demand for computing capacity, we have also driven up the development of the energy sector. For thermal power, electricity, the value added created in this sector has went up by 4.1%. In the meantime, we are developing the green economy, meaning new energies, equipment manufacturing went up, and this is a new vitality injected into the new quality productive forces. So in general, we can tell that we have made a very good start for this year, and the momentum is very positive. Still, we have to take into consideration the changes in the international picture with more overspilling effects of the geopolitical risks. Inside the country, there's still the imbalance between the supply and need side. Moving forward, we have to apply the decisions and the arrangements of the CPC Central Committee and the 2 sessions, continue to expand the local demand and make full use of what we have in storage and develop the great picture of economic sector of our country so that we can better safeguard the happy living of the Chinese people. Next question, please. We have noticed that the PPI has narrowed down in February. Navigation fees in the international world has gone up. What's your take in the inflation indicators, and what's your expectation for the next stage of development of these sectors? Yes, indeed, due to the uprising risks in the geopolitics, we have noticed prices of gas going up, oil and gas going up, and the total decline of the PPI has narrowed down, for example, down by 0.9 percentage points in February, which has narrowed down by 0.5 percentage points in comparison with January, and the year-on-year increase the year-on-year decline has narrowed down 3 times consecutively. The changes with the PPI is due to the development of new development engines and the uprising prices of some bulk commodities. Previously, when we did the briefing on the economic performance for the first 2 months, we have also mentioned the pillar effect of certain key sectors. When we look at the statistics of February, narrowing down of the decline of PPI could be explained by the following elements. First of all, the demand for high-end equipment went up due to the upgrading of the sectors in February. The PPI for the manufacturing of aero products went up rapidly, and manufacturing of the ships also went up by 0.5%. And second, intelligent and green development of the sectors. Some of the new demands have driven up the prices. In China, the AI has developed very fast, and due to that, manufacturing of electronic parts went up by 4.9% year-on-year. Maybe you have already noticed that for a period already, the chips have registered a fast growth in their prices. Inside the country, we also have an ever-growing demand for the computing capacity. In the meantime, we are doing what we call the green transitioning. So the biomass energy went up by 3.2% year-on-year in prices. This green transition has also made a strong effect in restructuring the prices patterns. Thirdly, the competition patterns have also changed in the market. For example, in key sectors, the governing has been improved for the cement manufacturing, metallics, refinery, especially for the steel manufacturing. The decline of the prices have narrowed down by 1.5 and 0.3 percentage points. For international energies and metals have also had an impact on the prices inside the Chinese market. In general, the PPI has demonstrated a positive change, which is to help us to change the expectation among enterprises. Recently, the turbulences of the price due to the geopolitical risks in the Middle East has caused a lot of worries in the international market. However, in China, we are under different layers, under the influence of multiple layers of elements. Moving forward, we have to take actions. For example, restructure the sectors and also develop further our domestic market so that we can push the prices of the key commodities back to the rational range of prices. Next question, please. Thank you. It's CNBC. In this year's government's work report, we have set an expected GDP growth around 4.5 to 5%. Considering the economic performance in the first 2 months of this year, is it a foundation for which extreme of that expected goal of the GDP growth? Towards 4.5 or 5%? Thank you for your question. This year marks the first year of the 15th five-year plan period. the performance at the beginning of the year would be crucial for our forecast for the economic growth and the GDP growth in the country. That's why we are all looking at the figures. Before the conclusions of the indicators, many enterprises have already made an estimation. But we have noticed quite different opinions for the forecasting. And combined with the statistics just released, the results of the reality have outperformed that estimated by the enterprises. This means that we have a rather resilient economy in the country. We have every reason to have the confidence in China's economic development. Inside and outside the country, we have intertwined twists, intertwined risks, and also challenges. However, the positive momentum of the economic development in China for a long period to come has remained unchanged. We are cultivating new productive forces, and we are building up new economic development structure, and we have the possibility to maintain this stable and positive growth momentum. First of all, we have a strong start of economy this year. The production demand has registered a growth while ensuring stability. For major indicators, we have made progress forward. And the good performance of the key indicators have set a very good foundation for the whole year's development of economy. Exportation of the goods of this first 2 months of this year has also registered faster growth of that of last December. We have improved the demand and also the supply side. The pricing of the goods has also demonstrated a mild increase. CPI with a mild growth, and the PPI has narrowed down its decline. And there is also an increase with the income of the people. We are pursuing a win-win cooperation with the other countries. We are developing the Belt and Road Initiative actively with our collaborators, creating new room for more economic growth. For the first 2 months, we have registered more than 20% of growth for our trade with the EU and ASEAN collaborators in the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative. We also have to guarantee the financing for major projects of engineering. For the first 2 months, year-on-year increase of investment in manufacturing reached 11.4%. And according to the government's work report, we have to take actions to improve the quality of the services to benefit the people and to better serve the people. In February, the confidence index of the consumers went up by 1%, and this is the second month of increase consecutively. Second, upgrading of industry has a solid foundation. Innovation has played a very strong role in boosting up the confidence for the sector. For the first 2 months, high-tech manufacturing value added created went up by 13.1%. which is higher than the growth of value added in the whole industry. In the first 2 months, we have noticed for the railway, telecommunication, recreational activities went up by 13.7% and 8.7%. Green industries have also grown rapidly, injecting new vitality into the sector. Turbine units went up by 28, and for the lithium battery went up by 24%. In recent years, China has made hard efforts in developing the energy sectors. For solar power and wind power, we have enlarged the capacity to satisfy the ever-growing demand in the market. Number 4 is the macroeconomic policies are helping. The Central Economic Work Conference and the 2 sessions have made important decisions and arrangements to guide the forward development of our economy. Monetary policy is relatively loose to guarantee sufficient liquidity in the market, and we also have to ensure the low cost of financing for the market players. Considering the implementation of the policies, we have already revealed positive results in boosting up the market's confidence. Investments in the renewal of the equipments, as well as the trading goods policies application, have all delivered very good results. In the next stage of development, we could tell that the Chinese economy could demonstrate a positive momentum of economic growth, setting a solid foundation for the next stage of growth. Next question, please. Thank you. With CMG. We've noticed that in February, CPI went up by 1.3%. Could you please explain that growth and what's your take on that? Thank you. We all paid a lot of attention to the prices. For the first 2 months, we have noticed a mild recovery of the prices. Month on month, the CPI went up by 0.1% and 1% respectively in January and February. Especially for February, a very strong month-on-month increase, mainly due to the holiday of the Spring Festival. Last year, this rapid month-on-month increase took place in January because that was the time we celebrated the Spring Festival in 2025. This year, it's in February. Due to these different elements, we have noticed the increase of the consumer goods. It's closely correlated with the time of the Spring Festival. More specifically, service pricing went up significantly due to the holiday of the Spring Festival. People have traveled more frequently. Many people first went back to their hometown and then they left their hometown for more traveling. This has contributed to the increase of the pricing in catering and the other sectors. For the leasing and repairing of vehicles went up by 29%, 19.8% and 12% respectively. And travel agencies' income, catering, and hotel went up by 12% 3.5% and 5% respectively. That's an increase of 1.6% month-on-month, which is much faster than that of January of this year. Second, food prices have also increased due to the holiday. We visited more often our family members and relatives. That's why we have driven up the prices for food, and the increase of prices for the meat, like the beef, and also fresh vegetables and fruit also went up, and more significantly than that in January. In February, these prices went up by 1.7%, which has contributed to 0.3% of increase of the CPI in February. So food and services in total combined have contributed to 1% of increase in the CPI. Industrial products have also contributed to the CPI increase. They themselves have registered an increase of price of 1.1%. If we consider the factor of the Spring Festival holiday in February, we can take the first 2 months combined into consideration. For the 2 months of the year, the CPI went up by 0.8%, which stayed at the same level in comparison with last December, but still with a mild increase in comparison with the whole year or the fourth quarter of last year. If we deduct the food and energy factors, the core CPI for the first 2 months of this year went up by 1.3%, which has expanded by 0.2 percentage points than last December. And this rational recovery of the CPI would help to improve the economic performance and income of the enterprises and then the income of the people. Recently, we have also noticed the energy prices fluctuation in the international world. However, in the Chinese market, we have very strong supply. That's why we have this foundation to stabilize the prices of the fossil fuels and also the energy in general. We also have to create new scenarios for the consumptions of the people. Next question, please. Thank you. With the 21st Century Economic Daily, we would like to ask a question about the investment. What's your take and comment on the investment performance in the first 2 months, and what are the highlights? Thank you for your question. During the briefing, I've also mentioned that there's significant changes and positive ones in the first 2 months. Last year, investment in fixed assets have dropped year on year, but this year, we have applied effective policies to boost up the investments, so we have registered positive increase, especially in key sectors, which is helpful for expanding the market demand. In the first 2 months of this year, went up by 1.8% for the investments in fixed assets. First of all, we have accelerated investment in key sectors. Considering the importance of this year, we have kicked off a lot of new engineering projects. In the first 2 months, we have registered 11.4% of investment in the infrastructure. In the meantime, we have accelerated the beginning of key major projects of construction. We have registered a 5% of year-on-year increase of the investment in the projects with a total value of more than 100 million RMB each. Manufacturing investment went up by 3.1% for the first 2 months of this year, which was 2.5 percentage points higher than the same period of last year. In different regions of China, we are all promoting the new quality productive forces development. For the first 2 months of this year, high-tech industries investments went up by 5.1%. For the aerospace manufacturing, information technology investment went up by 20% and 16.5%. High-end manufacturing has also demonstrated a good momentum of growth with fast growth of investment. For the first 2 months for railway, shipping, aerospace investment went up by 31.1%. For the energy transition, it's also in progress in China. For the wind power and the solar power, the installed capacity is growing with also the increase of investment. Electricity and thermal went up by 13.1%. And furthermore, we have also delivered stronger effects due to the policy application. We have renewed equipment. We have enhanced the financing for the first 2 months. SOE investments went up. In the meantime, we have applied the policies to encourage the private sector investment for the first 2 months. Private investments in the manufacturing went up by 9%. So this shows that we have to combine the government investments and also encourage the private sector investment. In the meantime, we have to bear into mind that the international world has prepared a very complicated picture for us. And in this year's government's work report, it is stated that we have to bring into full play the potentials, issued financial tools to cultivate the vitality of the private sector economy. Moving forward, we have to apply the decisions and arrangements of the Central Economic Work Conference and the 2 sessions, make more investments in the physical sector and also in the education of the talents. Consumption boosting would be one of the priorities of the government this year. And how can you do a forecast on this year's consumption? Consumption is also a hot topic among the people. It's correlated with the expansion of the domestic need and also the improvement of the daily living of the people. When we look at the consumption, we have to consider not only the total retail sales of the goods, but also the retail sales of the services, because the retail sales combine the physical goods and also the services. The two figures tell us about the situation respectively about the production of the goods and also that of the tertiary sector. And based on the performance of the first 2 months of this year, we can have the basic understanding of the momentum of consumption development throughout this year. We have a super long holiday for the Spring Festival this year, which has driven the growth of the consumption for the first 2 months. And we have also cultivated new engines for the ever-growing consumption. The total retail sales of the consumer goods went up by 2.8% for the first 2 months, which is 1.9 percentage points higher than the same period of last year and 1.5 percentage points higher than the fourth quarter of last year. And also the retail sales of the services of the first 2 months of this year also registered a growth which is 1.1 percentage points faster than the same period of last year. Due to the holiday of the Spring Festival, people spent more money in the recreational activities for the first 2 months. For the consultation for tourism, leasing and recreational activities have all respectively registered a growth rate of more than 10%. Almost 600 million people traveled during the spring holiday, a new record in history. And because we have the visa-free policies for foreign tourists, this has also helped to improve the figures of the tourism and the retail sales of goods and services. People visited more often outside and they have more dining out. And the second feature is that we have upgraded the consumption in the consumer goods. For the basic living goods retail sales, we have registered a faster growth. For the first 2 months, the grain, textile went up by 10.2 and 10.4% respectively. How to explain this fast growth in the retail sales of basic goods for daily living? Because people today have higher standards and higher demands. We all have limited demand for food in quantity, so we start to pursue higher quality products, especially for green food and healthy food. In the meantime, with this upgrading consumption habits, we have contributed to the fast growth of high-end products. Retail sales of jewelry went up by 13% for the first 2 months. Trading policies have also delivered more effects. Telecommunication equipment's consumption went up by 17.8%. Home appliances retail sales went up by 3.3%. Maybe it's not a very impressive figure, but in comparison with last December, it's already a big recovery. In this category of the home appliances and equipments, the consumption for the high-end products registered a double-digit growth. It means that people today, they have pursued higher end of products. Online retail sales are also progressing with better figures for the first 2 months. Online retail sales of services and products went up by 9.2%. For commodities, went up by 10.3%, higher than the rate of the total retail sales of the products in the society. Retail sales of services online also progressed significantly, up by 7.3% year-on-year, also higher than the average rate of growth of the retail sales. And online short TV series have made very good records. The transaction has delivered a growth rate of more than 30%. Green consumption, healthy development have also helped to boost up the consumption. In general, in the first 2 months of this year, we have a positive change and a strong momentum, which is a strong foundation for the whole picture, and this is the result of the application of the stimulating policies for consumption, growth, and also the expansion of the domestic market. This year, we will continue to apply a series of stimulating policies to continue to boost up the consumption, so we could expect a continuous growth of consumption. However, we have to take continuous efforts in order to tap the potentials of the domestic market. We have to take specified actions to upgrade the products, improve the quality of the services for the customers, improve the environment for doing business, and also enter into new emerging sectors of the market, for example, the healthcare and old age care. I have a question for the industrial performance for the first 2 months, and what is the role played by the new development engine? Industrial development for the first 2 months of this year, it could be considered as a big highlight. Now we are applying a more proactive macroeconomic policy, and we are building up new quality productive forces. We have cultivated new engines for development. In the first 2 months, we have accelerated industrial production with a better structure, better quality. I could share with you the following features. First of all, we have accelerated industrial production. Value added of the industrial production above designated sector size went up by 6.3%. For the majority of the industries, they have already demonstrated a recovery. 41 businesses of the total structure of the industries have registered a recovery. For the monitored products, around 350 of them have registered a positive growth in comparison with that of last year. So it means more than 60% of the total commodities of the industrial sector have made a positive increase. And in industry, equipment is an important part of it. In recent years, equipment manufacturing has progressed with a stronger competitiveness in the market, and equipment manufacturing has become a pillar of the sector, especially the higher-end manufacturing of the equipments have advanced significantly for the first 2 months. The value added in the manufacturing of the equipment went up by 9.3%. For computer, telecommunication, electronics manufacturing, railway manufacturing, value added went up by 14% and 17% respectively. Electronics and shipping, all these are technology-intensive sectors. And for traditional sectors, we have also improved the structure. We have made new clusters of new quality protective forces for energy sector. The processing of the petroleum have delivered positive results. Biomass went up by 50%. New biomaterials went up by 25.1%. So in traditional sectors of the industrial world, we have already cultivated new engines of development. Today, we are also pushing forward the digitalization, high-tech manufacturing. Above designated size have registered an increase of value added by 13.1%. The smart technology is also driving forward the development. For example, the automatic driving went up by 46.3%. With the application of green transitioning, green materials are progressing positively. Lithium battery for EVs went up by 28%. Carbon hydrate and lithium also went up significantly. This has reflected that we have already applied actively these new materials. And the cultivation of new quality productive forces are helping the restructuring and further improvement of the quality of the economy. We are still facing a lot of uncertainties outside the country, and inside the country we are facing challenges. Moving forward, we have to push forward the coordinations of different sectors and elements, cultivate a more modern manufacturing sector. Due to the limit of the time, the last two questions for today. Thank you. According to the briefing, you have added two new indicators. And for the retail sales of goods and services online, could you please elaborate on the content of these two figures? Thank you for your question. This year, for the briefing of the numbers, starting by this year, there is a new change that we will publish the retail sales for the goods and the services. In the past, we only talk about retail sales online. So on the basis of this original figure of the online retail sales, we will continue to separate the part from the online retail sales for the physical commodities and also for the services. We have covered more platforms for online services and retail sales of goods. In the past, we published only the figures of the online retail sales, one for physical goods, which reflected the consumption and the sales of physical products, and the other is the non-tangible products. For example, the services delivered by the key platforms online. In recent years, we noticed that the online services are developing very fast. That's why we have also strengthened the statistics analysis for this part. So we have decided to go into details for the calculation of the online retail sales. And that's why we have created this new indicator. In the past, we published the numbers of the total retail sales online for physical commodities. And now we changed the wording from the physical commodities to just commodities. But the scope of the calculation has not changed. We have just changed the two subcategories of this category of the online retail sales. However, starting by now, the scope of coverage of the online retail sales has been enlarged compared with the previous briefings. And we will keep up with the collection of the data to better reflect the consumption trends and changes online. We also hope that friends of the media and also our citizens could propose your ideas to help us to do a better job in the data collection, so together we can contribute to a high-quality development of the national economy. Last question for today. Thank you. With the Economic Daily, we are still facing a lot of uncertainties in the international economy. What's your comment on the economic performance of the first 2 months of this year? Just now, I have mentioned a little bit about the foreign trade of the first 2 months, and previously we also heard from the press conference of the General Customs. And the foreign trade has outperformed our expectation. A very good start for this year, because we noticed that today a lot of uncertainties and difficulties in the international world. But China has stayed very resilient in front of all those changes and difficulties. In the beginning of this year, the foreign trade has made such wonderful results. It means that we have a strong vitality and resilience in our foreign trade. According to the released data, import and export of commodities have registered very rapid growth. We have guaranteed both the quantity and the quality, a good reflection of the vitality of this sector. Some of the features are outstanding. First of all, we have accelerated the import and export. Thanks to the recovery of the trend, the holiday season, as well as the AI development, the commodity import and exports went up by 20.3%. Increased ratio of both importation and exportation have both picked up. For example, for the first 2 months, the increase rate of exportation of goods went up by 19.2% and importation up by 17.1%, which is 16.6 percentage points higher than the same period of last year. And in comparison between the two, you can see that the increase amount of the importation of the goods has exceeded that of the exportation of the goods. Secondly, we have further diversified the foreign trade. In the structure of win-win collaboration, we have worked together with the other collaborators and countries to further the application of Belt and Road Initiative. For the first 2 months of this year, with ASEAN countries and EU countries, there's an increase of 20.3% and 19.9% in foreign trade. China's foreign trade partners have also grown in numbers. Third, we have cultivated new engines for growth. Today, China's products exported to the outside world have demonstrated higher competitiveness, especially the high-end products exportation, which has contributed to the total important export of the products. Integrated circuit shipping and the other high-tech products have also demonstrated a good momentum of exportation. And today we also have the solid foundation to cultivate new engines of development, new engines of growth in the foreign trade development. Foreign trade enterprises are exploring new markets outside the country. For the first 2 months, private enterprises' important exports went up by 28.8%. Foreign invested enterprises registered a growth of 15.3% in their import and exports. For foreign trade, there are several factors to be mentioned here which would help us to better understand the foreign trade. First is the global demand. China's products have very good quality and can perfectly satisfy the demand of the foreign consumers. And second, China has a strong manufacturing sector. We have sufficient supply chain, a very stable supply chain, and sufficient supply which has ensured that China could always satisfy the demand of the market with continuous supply of the goods. And third, China always pursues win-win results in our collaboration with the other countries. We do not only export our goods, but also import. That's why we organize every year the CIIE. In general, since the start of this year, we have very good momentum in foreign trade and strong vitality in the import and export. Still, we should not lose sight of the uncertainties in the international world. We still have to overcome the difficulties in stabilizing the foreign trade. Moving forward, we have to stabilize the structure of the foreign trade and make continuous effort to apply the Belt and Road Initiative. Thank you very much. That is the end of today's press conference. Thank you, Mr. Fu, and thank you for all your attention.